Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Shantelle Chand here. And the Raiders got a couple of Pro Bowlers this season. We'll get into that. But also, we're going to recap the Raiders' statement loss. Yeah, I said it, statement loss. And we're going to break it all down. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network.
Raider Nation, what's happening? Q Myers here. Good things happen when Ashton Jeanty gets the ball. You saw that on Sunday. We'll break that down on the Squad Show.
Raider Nation, look at me being all festive and shit. I am here to tell you guys, I don't believe in moral victories, but you know what? There's something to be said about what we saw against the Texans. Some glimmer of hope. We'll talk about it next.
Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Remember, if you like the content and you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. We're also on the audio side, wherever you find your shows and podcasts. You can find us there too. So leave a rate and review, give us a 5-star. And also, we do appreciate you rocking with the show. The Raiders have 2 wins this season, but you've been riding with us the whole entire time. So we appreciate you continuing to support the show, helping it grow. So whether you make Locked On Raiders and the Squad Show your first and second listen of the day, we do appreciate that. Also, just a heads up, the Locked On Network is the #1 sports podcasting network, so we do appreciate you with that. And before we get into everything today, a quick shout out to our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Lots to get into in that final segment. Q and Linc are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can drop your comments in right now. If you're listening to this, you can always hit up our YouTube page or get at us on Twitter, and we might be able to answer some of your questions in comments on another episode. We're also going to dive into our rookie report and talk about the rookies, what we saw in the previous game this past Sunday in Houston. So we're going to get into that and what we liked. Also, did Pete Carroll save his job with that statement loss? I said statement loss because I know Linc says no moral victories, but we're gonna get into all of that. But we got to start off with the good news this morning. And Q was the first one to bring this up to me off air. But we've got some Pro Bowlers on the team. A 2-win team has some Pro Bowlers. So Brock Bowers getting his second nod of his career, and Max Crosby getting his 5th. So when you hear that the Raiders still got Pro Bowlers, and no surprise, 2 of the best players on the team. Q, what are your thoughts on this?
It's just the respect that, everyone has for those 2 individuals, Max Crosby and Brock Bowers, and it's well earned. I mean, it doesn't matter if the team is a 2-win team or not. You see the effort, and it was on full display on Sunday from Max Crosby. You see him hustling down the field, trying to make plays after Lonnie Johnson, misses a tackle, and Max just doesn't quit. So he's got the respect of not only Raider Nation, but he's got the respect of the league. And so that's what that is. I mean, when you're a 2-win team and you have multiple Pro Bowlers on your team, that's how you get them. Brock Bowers, we know, even in a down year, and it's only a down year because he's missed a couple games, we know what kind of tight end he is and how effective he can be in the league. So I think that everyone recognizes, they're not a very good team right now. They only have 2 wins, but they have a couple dudes on their squad, right? They could definitely go in Max and Brock Bowers. So nice tip of the cap, and just I guess a cherry on top of a terrible season for the Raiders, but at least these guys get their just due with the Pro Bowl. And as Linc will tell you, I mean, that's something that is important when it comes up to contract negotiations and comes up to, how many times were you a Pro Bowler when you start talking about the Hall of Fame? And I know it's not an individual game, like football's the ultimate team sport, but those kind of things do matter. So it's nice to see those guys get that respect from the league and, of course, the fans across the league as well.
Well deserved by those 2 gentlemen. Well deserved. I mean, when you look at what Max Crosby has had to deal with, even Brock Bowers, this entire team, no one is set aside. This has been a hard season, but well deserved by those 2 players. And more importantly, as we go along, as we make up in the future, there'll be an opportunity for us probably have more Pro Bowlers. Who knows?
Hopefully,
hopefully,
brother.
I mean, look, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yes,
so, Ashton Jeanty had a great game, and I know we'll talk about that last. But you know what? Here's the thing: Brock Bowers and Max Crosby have been the glue, the foundation, part of the foundation, hold this team together. Really, them going out there playing hard is by experience, and more importantly, you're showcasing to the rest of the players that this is how you do it. So just keep your head up high and see what you can do.
Yeah, and no surprise, I think Max Crosby is probably one of the best players in the NFL. I think you could argue that, especially at his position. And then the same thing with Brock Bowers. I mean, I think Trey McBride might have something to say, but I think Brock Bowers had a little bit of a tougher season just because he was also dealing with a huge injury this season. But both those guys deserve the nod. And I think a lot of people would agree that they are two of the best players at their position in the league. So congrats to Brock Bowers and, of course, Max Crosby. We got to get to the game and what we saw on Sunday. And what's funny, because I was watching the game and I kept on hearing Linc's voice in my head saying, there's no such thing as moral victories. But this one felt like a moral victory. It was a statement loss because, listen, Ashton Jeanty did his thing on the field. And we always talk about how the Raiders should run the rock. And we kind of thought that was their identity. And that's what I kind of want to get into when it comes to the offense and what we saw, also the defense, because they balled out. Q, do you feel like this was the team that we were supposed to see all season long?
Yeah, and it just stinks that it came in week 16, right? I mean, but yeah, that was definitely the recipe. That was what we all kind of expected. It was going to be a heavy dose of Ashton Jeanty. That's why you drafted him number 6 overall. You were going to get Brock Bowers involved, and obviously we all thought that they had more weapons. We didn't anticipate Jacoby Myers not being here and, and Big Mike not really being effective. Yeah, I thought that this was what we were going to see. And, the thing about it is we've talked about it so many times. Ashton Jeanty in particular, he's going to pick up dirty yards. He's going to get 2 yards here. He's going to get 3 yards here. He's going to pop one. He's going to get 5. He's going to get 8. He's going to get 10. I mean, there was times throughout the course of the game where I'm watching and it was a 4-yard carry. I'm like, okay, Ashton, I see you, because you see the moves that he's making. You see how difficult it was for the Texans to bring him down. And this is the number 1 defense in the league. Now, I knew going into the game that the Texans had missed a lot of tackles. I knew this. And I also know that Ashton Jeanty had caused, 54 missed tackles leading into that game. So he was up there. And I know some people look at it like, oh, not a big deal. But I do. I think it is a big deal because, again, he's been under duress basically as soon as he gets the ball in his belly. So we knew that he had an opportunity to break out and had a good game. To the Raiders' credit, they kept feeding him. Instead of going away from him, which I think that they've done too many times this year, they kept feeding him and said, we're going to make sure this guy gets over 20 touches. He ends up with 24 carries and then a catch and 2 touchdowns and 2 big plays. And good things happen when Ashton Jeanty touches the ball 25-plus times.
Yeah, look, it was a long, tough day for that young man, but he just held up his end of the bargain well, went out there and had a great performance. And I know Shantelle and Q, I don't believe in moral victories. A loss is a loss.
Yeah.
A win is a win. A loss is a loss. But look, pushing forward, I think if we're starting to recognize anything about what this team can do, look, they need some players. There's no doubt about it. They're going to have to get some players in the offseason. But pushing forward, what you can rely on is the fact that you do have a decent running game, or you can't be able to start a running game. And look, the Texans were porous against the run. Statistically, they were porous against the run. So I was glad to see the Raiders finally have a day where you could take it out on another team. It just came up too short, a couple points too short.
Yeah, and Ashton Jeanty, I feel like a lot of people kind of owe him an apology. He had 188 total yards in this one, and I really want to talk a little bit about the O-line as well, because I felt like the middle of the O-line played really well. I thought Alex Kappa did his thing. I thought the O-line kind of stood their ground. Still, they had, the Houston defense still had 3 sacks. But I thought for the most part, this was the best they looked all season long. Linc, what were your thoughts on the O-line?
Well, that's why you were able to get 188 yards out of Ashton Jeanty. The fact is the offensive line took care of business. They were sound, probably the soundest I've seen them all season when it came to blocking assignments and where they're supposed to be. They really tried to move Houston off the football. I tip my hat to that. But this is why you see a back like Ashton can have such a big day. I thought they played really well.
Lincoln, I thought that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you saw more hints of the power blocking scheme on Sunday as well. I felt like that those guys were more like man on man. I got this cat, you got this cat. We're gonna blow him off the thing. I felt like there was less of the zone blocking scheme than what we've seen this year. I thought it was a lot less of that on Sunday.
There were more man blocks, man plays called Sunday against the Texans than I've seen all season out of this group. And look, for what it's worth, they've got some big guys, but I just didn't think they had the muscle mass to be able to move these guys off the line, and they did. They proved me wrong this past game. They did. They were moving them.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into the rookies as well later on in the show when we do the rookie report. But I also want to talk a little bit about just the game plan because I feel like Coach Olsen, in terms of the offense, he was running a couple of different things for the offense. What were your thoughts on that, Q, and just what we saw from the offense entirely?
Well, the fact that he just stuck with what the game plan was, and the fact that he said he was going to run the rock through, run the rock with Ashton Jeanty and get him heavily involved. And like I said earlier, didn't get discouraged when it was only a 1 yard carry or a 2 yard carry. I'm still frustrated by, the 3rd and 1s and shotgun. I still can't stand that. I would love to see Geno under center. You saw it early in the game. He was in shotgun and they didn't pick it up on 3rd and 1. You saw him later under center, 3rd and 1, and he picks it up, right? I mean, it's ding, ding, ding. Good things happen when you're under center. So I'd like to see a little bit more of those adjustments that the Raiders will make. But I did think that the game plan going in offensively, the way that they planned on attacking that Houston Texans defense, that is a really good defense, as you mentioned, getting to the quarterback 3 times. They have a knack for creating turnovers. You saw the pick 6. That obviously was a big one against the Raiders. But to be able to attack that defense the way that they did and stay on the field. I mean, look, last week against Philadelphia, the defense was on the field 39 minutes. This was much more balanced this game, right? I mean, they were on the field. It was pretty even. So I looked at that as encouraging, right? The snap counts for both teams were pretty close to even. So that was a step in the right direction. Again, the only problem with it is it comes in week 16 and the Raiders are 2-13 and have 2 weeks left to play.
What I'm most concerned about was, again, we saw the Raiders defense sort of break down in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. and couldn't keep up, couldn't get the ball back to the offense. Even though you're a 2-point game, you're trying to figure out how to get the ball back to your offense. Maybe you can put them in special teams. They just couldn't do it. And that's what I'm most concerned. This defense is getting worn down. This is what happens as the season progresses. And like Q said, we're in week 16. This defense is getting worn down, and you see it in the second half of these games where you see a lot of arm tackles, a lot of missed tackles. You're not able to bring guys down. And this is still the National Football League. So you got to remember these big backs are coming downhill, and we're interested to see these next 2 games, against New York and Kansas City, how they finish. I think we're on the fence by we all saying, "Oh, we do really want them to win." Don't get it right now, and just stay where you are. But at the same point, winning would give a little bit of confidence back to this team. And I know how hard it is when you have consecutive losing streaks, how to snap out of it.
Yeah, 9 straight losses. But in terms of time of possession, the Texans had the ball for 31 minutes and the Raiders had it for 28 minutes. So this is maybe the first time.
Yep.
This is maybe the first time this season where it's been pretty close in terms of time of possession. So I feel like that's a win for the Raiders. And you mentioned the defense and how they're kind of tiring out a little bit. But I thought the veterans really stepped up in this game. I think Devin White also made some very, very big tackles early on in this game. That really set the tone. What were your thoughts on the defense is played? We know Max was going to show up, but in terms of the vets and even the young guys on the squad, because Taka Hemingway also did some great things in this game as well, Q.
I mean, I thought that the defense kept them in it. It gave them a chance, right? I mean, it wasn't perfect, obviously, or else they don't score 23 points, but it was good enough to have them have an opportunity to win the game, right? And kept them in it. Like Linc said, towards the end of the game, you could just tell that they were gassed. They were on the field too long, and you saw CJ Stroud get a little bit more comfortable. The pass rush wasn't able to get all the way home on him, and so he was able to hit a couple nice passes and, of course, bailed out with a couple PI calls. But, I mean, look, Nico Collins is no punk, man. I mean, he's a really good wide receiver, and so at some point, if he hasn't really popped throughout the course of the game, it's coming to him, right? I mean, we all know at some point the rock's going to go his way, and so, Darien Porter, he had moments where he was really good, especially early on in the game. There was moments that wasn't so good. Got called for a PI that he really didn't have to do. I think a couple uncatchable balls that were flagged, but I mean, that's how it goes, right? And you can't leave it up to the officials. It's like a boxing match, right? You can't let it go to the scorecards. If it goes to the scorecards, you never know what's going to happen. If you leave it into the hands of the officials, bad things can happen. So, I mean, again, I thought the defense was good. They still obviously need some more players. They need some more difference makers on that team. They've got Max Crosby as a difference maker, and they're still searching for the rest, right? And so guys step up, but they haven't stepped up consistently outside of Max. So that's what they need moving forward. They need to continue to evolve this defense, establish who's going to be the guys that are going to help be those difference makers alongside Max Crosby, and then just go from there.
That pick 6.
Yep.
That pick 6. That is what started it early. that downhill spiral. Like, don't know if they're able to come back because we've seen this offense struggle all year, struggle to score points. You can't not spot a team whose offense is not even in the field yet. You can't spot them 7 points. So that pick six really sent a message for me, and I don't know if they really ever rebounded from it. They made it close. And then there was a time where they had the lead, but still, you're talking about a good football team that's probably looking to playoffs, and the Raiders are so far from it. That pick six really did it in for me.
That was brutal. That pick six was brutal because, again, it's in watching it, I feel like, Link, this has been the theme of Geno Smith and what he's done all year is where he sees it but doesn't let it rip. I mean, if he's going to hit Ashton, he should have hit Ashton immediately. I mean, he opened up immediately, but he's thought about it. It's almost like he thought 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Okay, I'm going to let it go. Then throws it behind Ashton, and Derek Stingley Jr. is too good. He's too good. You can't do that. You can't make that mistake towards that young man because he'll do exactly what he did, take it to the house. So it's just been so many times, even on completions, a lot of times you'll see Geno hesitate before he lets it go. It's almost like it's okay, he's open. Is he sure he's open? Right? I don't, in Domino's, Link, we always say study long, you study wrong.
True story.
It feels like that's what Geno Smith does all the time. He studies long and he studies wrong.
So let's stay on Geno a little bit, because despite the fact that pick that he threw, which I feel like he does every time he starts a game.
You probably won some money, didn't you? You probably won some money.
I did bet it. And I was quite happy when I saw that green check beside the Geno interception. I'll say this, though. Was it his best game? Was that his best?
Since week one, yeah. Since week one, sure.
Yeah. And so in terms of his best performance of the season, you feel like Pete's just going to stick with him the whole way through now? We talk about how this is a 2-win team, and despite the fact of going up against, one of the best defenses in the league, I mean, the Houston Texans were ranked the number 4 run defense in the league, and Ashton had himself a game. So Geno Smith probably had his best game since, the Patriots week 1. Mm-hmm. Does Pete Carroll roll with him for the next 2 games? We'll go with you first, Q.
I think there's no doubt about it. I think that Pete Carroll's already let us know that Geno's my guy. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be out there. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm not the coach, right? I just roll with and I'm just the messenger, man. I'm the weather guy, right? Hey, man, it's probably going to rain. You might want to get a jacket. You might want to bring an umbrella. That's all I can do is tell you what he's been saying. But yeah, he's made it pretty well known that Geno Smith, he's going to ride or die with this guy, and it's what it is. I thought that it'd be nice to see Kenny Pickett for a couple games. I thought it'd be nice to see Aiden O'Connell for a couple games, but it doesn't feel like that's in the cards.
Pete Carroll's not changing. He's been loyal all season. He's not changing.
Why change now?
And why change now? I mean, look, this is your ride or die guy. I mean, look, you came with it even when Geno was hurt or banged up, still didn't make the switch. It's not going to happen.
Right. Exactly. And the fact that we're talking about this is his best performance since week 1, and he literally gave the Texans points.
Yes.
That kind of tells you the season that he's had, right? It has not been what I think any of us thought it was going to be when they made the trade with Seattle with them. I thought he was going to at least stabilize and kind of calm down the waters at that quarterback position until they could find their franchise guy. But to me, and this is just me, of course, we'll see what happens in the offseason. I think this is a one-and-done experience with Geno Smith. I mean, I don't see any reason to usher him back next year. I know that they're on the hook for $18.5 million guaranteed, but Denver has showed and Miami's going to show that $18.5 million ain't nothing, right? You can overcome that as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think for a guy like Geno, he's had such a rough season, even with the fans, and I think that's the biggest thing too, right? I mean, you throw up the middle finger to the fans. I don't think you should be back next year.
Well, hey, we got players punching fans now. DK Metcalf punching people getting suspended. Come on now, times have changed.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit wild for sure. But we talked about how Geno is Pete's guy. On the other side, we're going to be talking about whether or not Pete Carroll saved his job with this statement loss. Yeah, I said it's statement loss. I have to say that again because it was a moral victory, and I think a lot of Raider fans appreciated it. But the big question is, did Pete save his job? That's on the other side. Keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Easy drive, every momentum, every swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. So they got live spreads and money lines that adjust to the game. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and you can place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, so you can too. All right, welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us, or on the screen as well if you're watching this on YouTube. Pete Carroll, I feel like this was the first time this season, he preaches compete, compete. His name is in the word compete, and his team really competed to a high level on Sunday against the Houston Texans team that, listen, they're one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league, and the Raiders showed out against them, only lost by 2 points. There has been so many rumors, and there were rumors that came out before the game, actually, that Pete, this was going to be his one-and-done season. This is all over X. This is a conversation where he's being asked in the presser how he feels about his season, and you can tell he's getting a little bit snappy every time he comes to the podium because that's the type of season it's been. But Linc, you're chilling, you're laid back, so I'm going to go with you first here. Do you feel like this statement loss kind of saved Pete's job? Because I feel like for the first time this season, this is the team that he kind of envisioned.
How do we put this mildly?
No,
I don't think. Look, here's the thing. I don't want him to be fired anyways. I don't want him to be fired anyways because I don't want to start all over again. So I'm conflicted. I don't know if he did enough to save his job, but when you keep pushing the reset button, how are you going to get anywhere?
Right.
And it's, we got to take our lumps. We still got a lot of players we need to draft. We got cap space and stuff like that. Pete was brought in to run a team, to build a team, to run a team. And then he's going to, go off in the sunset. But if we keep firing coaches, we're going nowhere. I just don't know if there's somebody out there that, I got to have him. I got to have him. We got it. Because there's nobody. This team has a lot of work that needs to be done. So, this is why I have to dwell gently on this subject, because I don't want to see anybody lose their job, first and foremost. And I don't know if there's someone out there who could be better suited for what the Raiders need.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
In a disarray.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Q, there needs a lot of help here.
Oh, yeah. It needs a ton of help. And you're right. They have plenty of salary cap space. They're going to have a top pick, whether it's going to be number 1 or number 7, right? Anywhere in that range, they're going to have that pick. They're going to have multiple opportunities to get cracks at it. So they can get this thing turned around. They've got to make the right decisions. The reason I said no is because I don't think this game made a difference. And what I mean by that is I don't think there's anything that Pete Carroll can do at this stage of the game that's going to change the mind of the powers that be. So if they're going to stick with them, I think they've probably already made up in their mind they're going to stick with them for another year. If they're going to move on from them, I think they already have moved on from them. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they already have made that decision and they're going to let this season play out. I don't think there's something that you could do in week 16 as a 2-12 team that's going to save your job, right? Or even, that's the final straw. Well, now that's the final straw? You know what I mean? Like that's why I said no. I don't think there's anything that can be done these last couple weeks. This is what I think is going to come down to. And again, this is just a spitball and sitting around the water cooler, shooting the bull. I think that the Raiders are probably putting their feelers out for who they may have some interest in, similar to what they did last year when they wanted Ben Johnson and his agent said, no, don't put in the slip. Ben's not interested. And then they went back and said, hey, we really want to talk to him. And he said, okay, we'll allow him to have a Zoom call. They had a Zoom call. He ultimately obviously chooses to go to Chicago. If they put their feelers out to potential coaches that they may have interest in and see if they have interest in coming, like say it's Clint Kubiak in Seattle, just throwing a name out there because he's going to be a hot commodity. And he says, yeah, I like Bowers. I like Jeanty. I like Max, salary cap space, top pick. Yeah, I think I would have interest in that. Then I think that there's some conversations to be had about if Pete Carroll is going to come back or not. But they might get some early feedback, Shantelle, where it's like, yeah, I'm not really interested in that. Yeah, I'm really not interested in that. And then it goes to Lincoln's point of, well, who are you going to get? You're just going to replace someone just to replace someone? And that could open up the door for Pete Carroll to come back. Again, that's just me spitballing. That's not me coming from a place of knowledge. I just kind of know how these things go from time to time and year to year. And I feel like that's part of the process that they're probably going through right now.
And Shantelle Q, I feel that we're probably, if that was true, you're probably going to go after somebody who's winning football games right now, right? So they're probably in the playoffs, which means you have to push that even further back, which means you get nothing done. This is why, this process can be so tedious. And I know, like everyone in Raider Nation wants to get it right. You want to find a coach that can come in here and turn things around. I just don't know if we're short-sighted enough to say, okay, you hire a different coach and things might be different. I just, without the players, without the coaching staff, and you got to hire an offensive coordinator. If Olsen doesn't want it, I mean, there are still lots of work to be done with this team.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think the biggest question is who's going to be making those decisions. And in this season, we don't even know who made a lot of the decisions because there was so much. Well, Tom Brady had input on this. Spytech did this. Pete brought in his own guys, and it's like, it should really be Spytech hiring the coach and then the coach hiring his staff. And that is not what happened this season. And then also, I don't know how much input Tom Brady really has on everything. And it's like, how much is he making these decisions? Because there was all this talk about how he was Chip's guy. And then there was like rumors that like Pete flew out to get Chip. And, it's been an absolute mess. But I'll say this, I think Spytech should get another chance. And there were rumors that his job is safe. So there's that. But I do think he should hire a coach and then the coach should hire his own staff. That's how it should always go. Now, there's a bunch of guys whose names could be thrown in the hat. And I'm just going to throw a couple in here because if Pete doesn't come back, Pete doesn't come back. And he could also retire too because he seems fed up. Like he seems like he's so over it at the podium and his demeanor has just changed. What would you guys feel about a guy like Marcus Freeman?
You went for the home run. You didn't even give us like a single or a double.
Wow.
I mean, you went to a leadoff, Ricky Henderson leadoff home run, man. You started off the game by putting it in the seats.
I've been thinking about this. But
no, that's no. In all honesty, and I'm like Lincoln, I don't root for anyone to get fired. These jobs are way too hard to come by and hold on to. And like he said, most of these coaches, they live their lives in suitcases, and so that's never. That's never something that you kind of want to clown around about. And these guys have families that they move around. So I don't root for guys to lose their jobs. With that being said, I'm a big Marcus Freeman guy. I've loved Marcus Freeman, what he brings to the table as a coach since he was at Cincinnati when he was the defensive coordinator, right? And then worked his way up the ranks, DC there at Notre Dame. Obviously, he's doing his thing as the head coach there now. I like him a lot. Now, the question I always have, Link, and you probably know better than I do, does the college coach, does that translate to the National Football League?
Not all the time.
It's a different ball game. And so we've seen some greats come from the college ranks, and it hasn't worked out in the NFL. That's my only concern I ever have anytime I hear a name like Marcus Freeman pop up, because I do respect the hell out of him as a coach, think he's great. Does that translate to the NFL?
I've always felt that when guys come out of college and they come into the league, they have to put themselves on a level plane with their players. When you're in college, you control everything.
Right.
You control who you recruit. You control who gets a scholarship. You control who they come in. You've got these guys 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as much as you want. But when it comes to the league, these guys have families. They go home. Sometimes they're not going to turn on the film, and you can't tell them to turn on the film. Hey, I implore you to watch a little film, and they take their laptops and they go home. So it's anyone's business. I say that to say this. No matter who you bring in, you have to establish the right hierarchy for your system and your program. You have to let people know who they answer to and who's responsible for it, whatever it is, the day-to-days and stuff like that. A lot of times college coaches come in and, yes, they might have run a program, but they had an athletic director, had other coaches and other things, other pride to help run the program, but it's not for sure that they're going to be able to turn it around. A guy like Freeman has done a great job, as Q has talked about. I think he would be good for the program. However, who's running the show? We go back to Chantelle's point. Who's running the show? Who's going to hire him? Who's going to fire him? You see what I mean? These types of things, you got to establish this, because you want to walk through a building and no one looks around like, well, I don't know who's really in charge. Who do I have to fear, or who should I answer to? That's my biggest concern about with any coach.
Link, that's why we were surprised when Chip Kelly got fired.
So true.
Because we thought he was untouchable. Like I didn't think his boss was ever Pete Carroll.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. So when a guy that supposedly underneath one guy and he's actually not underneath him, I mean, it's hard to establish who's calling what. And so when Chip Kelly got fired, I think it surprised all of us, only because I thought he answered to Tom Brady where Pete Carroll answered to Mark Davis. I didn't see that dynamic really being the way that it should have been. And that's why, to Lincoln's point, they've got to get their power structure in place before they make any kind of decisions, or else it's going to be the same. It's going to be rinse and repeat, just might be different names involved in it.
And if you're a coach, why would you want to come into a disadvantaged situation like that?
Exactly.
You don't want to see that. You don't want that on your resume. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that they consider before they get everything straight, even if they do explore hiring another coach.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, because Chip Kelly, we just thought, that's Tom's guy. But if you think about it, like if you're at your job and someone tells you to do something and they're not your boss, like, I'm not going to listen to him. Like, you know what I mean? I'm going to do my own thing. Like, he's not my boss. So that was kind of, I feel like, the dynamic with Pete and Chip. But I will say this. Do the Raiders have Max Crosby? They have Ashton Jeanty, which I mentioned. Some people owe Jeanty an apology. I want to see that again. They have, Brock Bowers. They got some young talent. But I think them getting a quarterback in the draft might make them a sexier team for coaches to want to come and coach, right? That's what I'd say.
Well, having the opportunity for sure. I mean, because if you think about the way that the calendar is going to be set up, right? The season will get wrapped up. The Raiders will make decisions. They'll either keep their coach or they won't keep their coach. And then they've got to do the coaching search. And to Lincoln's point, the guys that they're probably going to be interested in will be like a Clint Kubiak who's in Seattle, and they'll be playing in the postseason. Shula, who's in LA, he'll be playing in the postseason. Like, all these coaches will be there. So if they're going after one of those guys, then it's going to take a while for them to get them. And then they've got to get their, go over their roster with a fine tooth comb. Then they've got to go over their free agents, and then they got to go on over outside free agents. Then they got to start the draft process. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, they'll have the opportunity, but that'll be probably the selling point to anyone if they are trying to bring in a new coach. Got a lot of money for salary cap, so we can bring in a lot of guys and fill some holes that we need, and we have a top pick, regardless of where that pick is going to be. And obviously after Sunday's game against the Chiefs, we'll all know where that draft pick is going to land. It's either going to be number 1 overall or it's going to be number 7. Like, it's anywhere in between 1 and 7 is where the Raiders could end up ultimately with their draft pick. So you'll know what you have to sell to a potential head coach if, in fact, you do decide to go make a change.
The sense of urgency and the timing of any decision is going to be critical, mainly because you know how fast the season moves in the offseason. You come out of the year, you come out of it, and the Super Bowl is right there in February. Then you have the combine. Then you have all these evaluations. So if you're going to hire a new coach, you need to get him in right away to figure out who he wants to pick up at quarterback. I mean, and my view is that the Raiders need to spend a lot of their money on offensive line, because they definitely need an offensive line. And yes, you need a franchise quarterback. It's long overdue. It's time for you to address it. Yeah. Depending on what's available and what's out there, then we'll see how that goes. But you're asking whomever is going to be at the helm to come in, and if it's an offensive-minded coach, he's going to want a quarterback he wants to draft. He's going to look for that. If it's a defensive-minded coach, we'll probably make some changes going the other way. But I mean, that's what you're up against, and the timing of it is before you know it, the draft's going to be here, and then you're on the clock, and then we're recycling the whole thing for summer, getting ready for the season again. So there's a lot of stuff that has to happen if you're going to make that move.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it better not be the number 7 pick. We worked too hard.
It could end up being, depending on how the next couple of weeks go, it could be as low as number 7.
Yeah, and that's the scary part, because I like the way the Raiders lost this past Sunday. They were competitive. They had a good effort. The defense played well. Even Geno played well, except for that pick. But I will say that this was the type of loss that I was into. This is the type of loss I want to see. And the game against the Giants might be the biggest game of the year, because you are playing for the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
You're playing for the number 1 overall pick. And I think if you have the number 1 overall pick, you're a sexier location where a coach might want to come to, right? Because a coach might want to say, hey, this team has the number 1 pick. They already got Max Crosby. They got Brock Bowers. They got Ashton Jeanty. I could be more interested in coaching a team that has the number 1 overall pick. So in terms of effort and them, I know Linc has said this before, but players don't care. They want to win, and coaches want to win as well. But I feel like there's a little bit of a tug of war going on with fans and what the team wants to do. How much of a letdown would it be if the Raiders got the number 7 overall pick instead of the first, Linc?
Well, it'd be brutal. You got a lot of work to do in the offseason with free agents. I mean, look, there are a lot of holes in this team, and it would be brutal if they fell out of that graceful spot again. But again, even if you have the number one pick, can you tell me how the hierarchy is in this organization?
Right. Exactly.
So if you're a coach coming in, I've always thought a head coach and the general manager should be like this. If I go to Q and say, Q, I need to shut down corner to play on the right side. Q's my general manager. Put your scouting department out there. Get me a corner that shuts on the right side. If I say I need a big offensive tackle that can road grade and be a masher, Q, give me what I need. That's how a system would work to me. I don't necessarily see that here. So I don't know what we're up against. We can't put the carriage in front of the horse. We can't sit there and say, oh, well, we'll bring in, this guy or bring in this guy. And no one knows who's running the show. Because now if Mark hires them, does what we hear about Brady and those guys, does that come out to say, no, we don't want him? Or is Brady going out, taking the tour, trying to be the Mr. Charismatic and interview guys? Who knows? Is Spytech doing it? Who knows? We don't. But first, they need to figure out the hierarchy before you start working down the line as to what you need for this team.
Yeah, they just need to get all their ducks in a row when it comes to the powers that be, and everyone understands what everyone's role is. And I think right now there's still some questions, and there's a lot of rumors about who's making what decisions, and is John Spytech just a extension of Tom Brady, or what's going on? I mean, what they really need is a head of football operations where everyone knows this is the guy.
Yep.
And everything falls under that guy. All right, this guy comes directly to him. This guy report. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they really need to do. They need to get their structure in line, especially if they end up, say, with the number one overall pick. That's a position of power, right? I know all the Raider Nation's like, hey, you get number one overall pick, you go take your quarterback, which they very well could do. But you also are in a position where you have options. So if your quarterback is there, if you're a Mendoza team, look at him and say, hey, that's the guy. Okay, great. Go get him by all means. If you're a Moore guy, okay, go get him by all means. But if you're not, you can do what the Chicago Bears did when they decided we're going to trade that pick back. They traded it to the Carolina Panthers. They ended up with the number 10 overall pick. And then they got the Carolina Panthers number 1 overall pick the next year. And they were so bad, they ended up with the number 1 pick again. That's how they got Caleb Williams. And they had a boatload of picks that Carolina had to give them so they can go up and get that number 1 overall pick and take Bryce Young. So you're in a position of power. I'm not saying and suggesting that that's what the Raiders do. I'm just saying that's the options that they have. And it's better to be in a position where you have options than be in a position where you're pigeonholed and you have to make a decision in a certain direction.
Yeah, and if you want to go for a quarterback and the Giants have the number 1 overall pick, I think you're safe because they love themselves some Jackson Dart. The only thing I'd say is the concussion issues. Well, it's like, are they worried about that?
But at the same time, a team, if you're the Giants and you get the number 1 overall pick, you're really in a position of power because you don't need that quarterback, to your point. And now you can auction that pick off to the highest bidder. There might be a team like the Jets that are sitting behind the Raiders, or insert whatever team you want that is like, you know what, we need that number 1 overall pick. So they're willing to mortgage the future and leapfrog the Raiders. And now all of a sudden the Raiders are looking around like, what happened? You know what I mean? So that's why, going back to if they ended up at number 7, how disappointed it'd be after a 2 and whatever season it is right now. Hell yeah, it's disappointing, right? Yeah. Because now you're so close to the finish line, you might as well just finish this bad boy off strong, get that number 1 overall pick, and have yourself in a position of power, as opposed to let other teams across the league have that power.
Yeah, I was nervous on Sunday. I was like, what are they doing? Are they trying to win this game? Come on, like let's slow down here, right? After I saw that 50-yard run, I was like, let's stop it right here. But I'll say this, when it comes to the Raiders and possibly having that number 1 overall pick, that's all pretty much going to be decided after that final Sunday. And if there was one game I'd want them to win, it would be against the Chiefs. That last game of the season. I'd be okay with that.
Are you sure?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I gotta think about it. I hate the Chiefs so much. Where I'm like, man, I wouldn't mind if they beat the Chiefs.
They're on QB3 now.
Yeah. So that's the thing. But I would hope that the Raiders don't drop down to 7. By the way, in that final segment, Linc and Q are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. But before we get to that in the final segment, we are going to take a quick break, and we're going to talking a little bit about the rookie report and what we saw from the rookies this past Sunday. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. Car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. And with Car Gurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars you want. Because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. And Car Gurus makes that whole process simple by giving you a real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else. So you can shop the way that you want. Use Car Gurus deal ratings to compare cars quickly without having to guess whether the price is fair. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most any major online automotive marketplace, you'll always find the best deal. Shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com, cargurus.com. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, in that final segment, if you're watching this on YouTube now, you can get in your questions and comments for Linc and Q, and they'll be, taking that final segment to answer some of your questions and comments. So whether it's about the draft, whether you want to know a little bit more about what they saw in the game on Sunday or what coach they'd be interested in other than Marcus Freeman, drop your comments in the section right now. All right, we got to talk a little bit about the rookies. And I actually want to start off with Darien Porter, because I thought for the most part, we've seen him be in some situations where he's made some mistakes, but as a rookie, you're going to make some mistakes. And then, I feel like he's played pretty well for the most part, but what were your thoughts on what we saw on Sunday, Q?
Sorry, I was in the groove.
Okay.
I think Darien Porter is going to be fine. Obviously, he's going to have moments where he's going to have those teaching moments, and you saw some of those. I mean, they were on full display against Philadelphia. I mean, he was just targeted early and often, but you saw him come out against Houston, and he looked a lot better. He still had moments where he's in a position, and it's almost like, oh, what do I do? Almost like a panic move. And then that's when you have contact that you don't need and a penalty gets called, regardless if it's uncatchable ball or not. And I do fully believe that the one PI was definitely uncatchable, but that's a whole nother conversation. You have to be cleaner than that. A few weeks back against Denver, he was much cleaner than that. He had some PBUs against Cortland Sutton and looked really good. I think Darien Porter is going to be fine. I just think that this is part of the growing process. I'm just happy that he's getting out there and he's getting a lot of burn. And that's something that a lot of Raider Nation's been yelling for quite a while, is get these guys, these young dudes out there and see what they can do, so you can know what you need when you go into the offseason and know, hey, no, this guy's not going to cut it, or didn't see enough growth from him. I think you're going to have to address that some more. You're starting to see that. So I think Darien Porter will be fine. I really like what Eric Stokes, and I know he's not a rookie, but I like what Eric Stokes has done this season, and I think he's actually helped Darien Porter continue to grow to the point where Eric was talking last week that he thinks, hey, he might even be a better man, a man corner than like a cover three, and they really didn't run man at Iowa State. It was a lot of cover three there at Iowa State when he was in college, and you remember he's new to this position, so when I saw them playing some man, right, some press coverage on Sunday, I thought, okay, hold on. There must have been something that was talked about throughout the course of the week in practice, because it's not a coincidence that Darien Porter is talking, or Eric Stokes is talking about Porter being a better press man cover than a zone cover, and all of a sudden they play and have a little bit of elements of that. So I think that that's something that they're clearly working on. I heard Landon Roberts before the game during the pregame show. He was talking to Tim Cates, and he said, we had a really good Friday practice, probably one of our best Friday practices of the year, and I think our defense is going to come out and play really well. And then also you saw what happened and translated on Sunday. So there could be something that's brewing. Again, I go back to my original point I made to start the show. I hate the fact that it's in week 16.
Growing pains happen for every player as they go through the season, and this is no different. Darien's going to have his times where he can shine. He's going to be put up against some of the best receivers in the league. And have to go out there and cover him. Just have to show his worth, show his value. But this is how you gain confidence. You can't make the club in the tub. More importantly, you got to go out there and show what you can do. So the evaluation period that comes towards the end of the season, what you have in hand or what you might need to address. And I think that's fine. So I like the way he played.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree with Q as well in terms of the PI. That ball was overthrown and it wasn't catchable. So, I mean, that might happen sometimes, but that's the NFL refs. They're also against the Raiders sometimes. All right, we'll go over to Jack Bech, because he also had 2 receptions for 43 yards. And I feel like we're seeing a little bit more of Jack Bech every game, but just in terms of what we saw from him on Sunday against the Texans, Link, do you like the trajectory that Bech has been on and what we've seen from him? Maybe the last like 3-4 games or so.
I think of him as a really good, solid possession receiver. And when you're trying to develop Dante Thornton Jr. with the concussions and everything else and inconsistencies on the field, it's good to have somebody that's opposite Brock Bowers, and that can open up things. And so I do like his size and I do like his catch radius. I think he's going to continue to develop and move forward. Look, I'm just happy the young guys are playing.
Thank you.
When it comes down to it, I'm just happy they're out there. I mean, you got to get your stripes, get your licks in. And what better time to do it if not now than any other time? I mean, you drafted these guys, you picked these guys. I'm glad to see they're on the field.
Yeah, I think Jack Bech is going to be a really good possession receiver. I think Link hit it right on the head. And that's a good thing, right? Because, again, you go back and look, and I know he's only had a handful of catches this year, but the majority of his catches go for first downs, which is maintaining possession, which is keeping drives alive, which is something that the Raiders don't do enough of. So I'm fine with that. He doesn't have to be a burner. He doesn't have to be a guy that's going to take the top off the defense and score from just about anywhere on the field. I mean, but he has a knack for getting open and getting a first down, and the Raiders need that in their arsenal. They need to have that type of guy. So I'm good with that. You know, I mean, I think everyone understood when the Raiders drafted him that he probably was a guy that was going to eventually replace Jacoby Myers. And I think that they probably ushered that in probably a little quicker than they needed to, but that's another conversation for another day. That's the decision that they made. They got a couple draft picks out of that. Obviously, they need as much capital as possible this upcoming offseason. So now it's time for the young man to step up, right? I mean, at first you were allowed time to grow and get comfortable in the National Football League. All right, now scholarship time's over, right? Your red shirt's pulled. You got to play. I mean, that's just what it is. And so that's what he's doing. And, you know, seeing him in the locker room throughout the course of the week, I mean, he's ready for it. He's ready for it. And he looks very locked in and looking like he's trying to continue to learn and develop. And that's all you could really ask for these young guys.
Caleb Rogers, he looks like a legitimate starter in this league, and I feel like we've kind of seen the growth. Also, he's one of the first guys that is on the sideline when someone makes a play, he's dapping them up, and I absolutely love that. Link, do you feel like we've kind of seen a little bit of growth from Caleb Rogers, and do you believe he's also a legitimate starter in this league?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm confirmed by that. There's no doubt about it in my mind. The young kid can play. Now put him out there. He's going to take his lumps just like anyone else, but put him out there.
Yep, exactly. Agreed. 100%. What we've been talking about the last few weeks here on this show and every other platform we're on is, can Caleb Rogers be a part of the solution, which is the Raiders' problem on the offensive line? And yes, is the answer. He absolutely can. So now you're looking at it and at least I am feeling a little bit better about the offensive line, knowing that they have money to address the areas that they need to fix in the offseason. You feel good about Colton Miller. Hell, he might be back this week for all we know, right? You feel good about him at the left tackle spot. Now, I do understand that he's, not going to be there forever, right? So at some point, they're going to have to find a replacement for him. Charles Grant, he's another guy that's going to play a factor. I don't know what the factor is going to be because we've only seen him in a couple snaps, but he could play a factor. Caleb Rogers is somebody. He's a guy that I feel pretty comfortable will be a starter along that offensive line next year, right? And then you have Colton Miller, you have Caleb Rogers. JPJ will come back to some point. I don't know what position he'll play. I'm not going to try to guesstimate, right? It depends on who the coaches are and depends on who the offensive line coach is and what they project as his role. But I think that he's a guy that has the kind of attitude and the nasty that you want along that offensive line. He could be a part of the solution as well. So now you're looking at like, well, maybe the Raiders just need, to bring in two starters, right? You got to look at DJ Glaze. You've got to have some competition for him. Parham, I don't think is going to be back. So you're looking at two spots, and you got to say, hey, you fill those two spots, right? Maybe go get you a free agent center from Baltimore, and then you feel good about the way that your offensive line is put together. Again, it's just me trying to put it together in my head, but you can see the pieces start to come together, but they just need the ultimate glue, and they need to find out who those guys are going to be once they finally get them and let them start to gel together.
And for one more thing, DJ Glaze has played a lot better too the last couple of weeks. Again, I don't give out moral victories, but assignment, knowing where you're supposed to do and knowing how you're supposed to do it. I have seen his game get a little bit better as the season progressed on as well.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, like I wouldn't mind if Alex Kappa was the backup center, or maybe they go out and get
backup for sure.
That's yeah.
He's got to be a backup something. He doesn't need to be a starting anything.
Yes, I agree. And you never know, like the Raiders might draft a tackle in the draft, which they should. So that might be something that they do. But before we finish off with the rookie report, I do want to ask this final question, and it's about Ashton Jeanty. We saw him go for 188 total yards. Do you feel like we can finally assess him this season? Because I feel like we haven't really been able to assess him with the season that the Raiders have had, that the O-line has had. Do you feel like we've actually seen the real Ashton Jeanty after this last game, Link?
Your running back is only as good as your offensive line.
Right.
So I can't hand out medals. I can't hand out medals and say, you did a good job. No, your running back is only as good as your offensive line. And we have not gotten a fair assessment out of Ashton because the offensive line has been so porous.
I don't think that we, I guess, let's see how to word this. I think that we have seen glimpses to know what he can do, if that makes any kind of sense, right? We've seen what he can do. We just haven't seen it consistently because of everything that Lincoln just said. So I think if you address the offensive line like we're talking about in great length, and you give him a chance, you got to give him 25 touches a game. However you get it done, he's got to be your workhorse, and he's going to make some really good things happen. Throughout the course of the year, we've seen some good from Ashton. So
Right.
you know he's got it in him. He just hasn't been able to put it on display every single game in and game out. Some games he gets, like against Philly, he had, 9 touches? Like, what's he going to do there? Right? I think the guy that was the king of the lack of touches with Napoleon Kaufman. Remember, Link? I mean, you give that guy 9 or 10 touches, all of a sudden he's gone over like 150 yards. He's like, boom,
Yeah.
he's going to take one to the house. But this isn't who Ashton is. Ashton is a volume back. Ashton's a guy that gets better as the game goes along. He gets better as guys start getting worn down. I mean, you had a guy in Will Anderson talking about, I've never stopped in a game. His words, not mine. I've never stopped in a game and said, that dude is a dog. He said, that's what he said about Ashton Jeanty during the game. That dude's a dog. He's going to be special. He's got it. He just needs help, obviously.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that Ashton Jeanty had the game that he had this past Sunday, and hopefully that'll quiet some of the haters and the doubters for now. But coming up on the other side, Link and Q are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to get them into the chat. And if you're listening to this, you can always hit us up later, and we might get to those questions or comments on another episode. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. Welcome back, Raider Nation. That was a quick break if you're watching on YouTube, and I'm sure you appreciated that. But if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, we would just want to mention quickly that the Locked On Network is the #1 sports podcasting network, and we do appreciate you rocking out with Locked On Raiders or the Squad Show. So whether you make the Raiders your first listen of the day and the Squad Show your second listen of the day, we do appreciate you. All right, let's get to some questions and comments. And the first one that I want to go to is really more so a comment right here. But Steven says, thank you, Shantelle, Q, and Professor Kennedy for our weekly Raiders group therapy session, because that's what it's really turned into. We're here for you, y'all. Barrera35 says, question for the guys. Do you see Geno staying if he keeps the last games competitive? Would he be a good mentor for a young quarterback, Link?
I don't even know if Geno wants to do that. Geno's been a journeyman around the league so far, and he has been waiting for this opportunity. Now, obviously, you can say to make the claim he didn't make the best of his opportunity, but he was waiting for this opportunity to show why he should be a starter in this league. I don't know if Geno wants to sit there behind a young guy or hold a clipboard. And look, I don't know him well enough to know if he has a personality like that, if he's a true team guy and he just wants to collect a check. I don't know. I mean, a lot of times with these journeymen, these quarterbacks, these experienced quarterbacks, they're getting jobs elsewhere. So I don't even know if Geno wants to do that. What do you think, you?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the mentor type to me. And that's just my gut feeling. He seems like a guy who doesn't want to have a real deal competitor behind him. I honestly believe, and this is, again, just my gut feeling, this is not from a place of knowledge or anything. There's always a website that's writing about everything that we say, and they don't put their name on it, so I'm a little salty about that, but it's okay. So I feel like that the Raiders didn't draft a quarterback early last year, so they didn't have somebody behind Geno that everyone's talking about, put this guy in, put this guy in, put this guy in, and they still did it, right? Everyone still talked about Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell and even Cam Miller. Could you imagine if they had drafted a quarterback early? Say they went and got, a Shador or a Jackson Dart or a Tyler Shook or any of these guys, got him early and had him sit behind Geno as Geno's going to be the bridge guy. I think that noise would have been so loud. I think they purposely did not go and get a guy super early in the draft for those exact reasons, giving Geno an opportunity to make this his team, and he didn't make the most of it, right? And so I don't know if he's built to be that mentor and have that young guy behind him. I think, honestly, a guy like Aiden O'Connell would probably do that job better than Geno Smith would. I just think that Aiden, from everything I've seen over the years, he's the ultimate teammate. He's the guy that's out there supporting his team regardless. And I know he wants to be a starter, but he's had a lot of, things go against him. Sometimes were forced by him, sometimes others, but he's always still has that same right attitude. He's always there supporting his team. I've never seen him at the facility where it looks like he's, like pouting or walking with his shoulders down or dragging or whatever. He always seems like he's right there for his teammates. So if anyone could be a bridge, I would think it'd probably be O'Connell as opposed to Geno Smith.
Okay, let's go over to Mallow 5. Also, do we really go all in for a quarterback, or do we work on the O-line? Link?
Do both. You could.
Both.
The beautiful thing is you could do both. It's not like the draft comes before free agency.
Right.
And again, the Raiders have so much money in free agency. You'll have a better idea. When we always start doing mock drafts and what the Raiders should do, and you'll have a great idea what they're going to do come April based off what they do in free agency. If they go out there and with all the salary cap space that they have, and they go out there and they bring in a couple of big dudes along that offensive line, that, okay, they're gearing up for probably to get their quarterback, right? You'll have a good idea about that. So I think you could do both in the same offseason and still be very productive and still be able to build around the rest of the team as well.
I think it goes back to Q's original point about where pick do they have in the draft, and where are they, and how that will affect their decision making. Look, if you don't cover up this wound, you don't address this franchise quarterback sooner or later, you're going to have many more seasons like this. You got to go out there and do it. So to answer your question, Shantelle, I think they can do both as well. Like you said, I think they can do both.
All right, let's go over to Tyler McNair. Would DJ Glaze be better at guard?
Yes.
Either of you can take this. That's simple.
Yes. If you're going to have him uncovered and go from the gun, yes, he would be better at guard. But at the same point, you don't really have a tackle that you can rely on besides him out there. Now, I mean, you have to address this offensive line, but I do think he'd be better at guard.
Yeah, and Q, you're agreeing with Link on that.
Yeah, for sure. I thought, matter of fact, last year the conversation was, are you going to draft Ashton Jeanty, or are you going to go out and get, a starting, offensive lineman? It was a Membu. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a starting right tackle. So my vision was if they went Membu, they could put him at the right tackle position and slide Glaze inside to the right guard. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, and then you had JPJ at the center position. Little did I know they weren't going to have him at the center position, and whatever they were going to do at the left guard spot, it would be more of a solid line. Obviously that didn't happen, but if they were to go out and get a tackle, or maybe a guy like Charles Grant pops and they decide that they're more comfortable with him at that right tackle spot, I could definitely see them sliding DJ Glaze inside.
It's funny, before the draft last year, people were hitting me up and they're like, do you think the Raiders are going to draft Jeanty? And I was like, no way. We don't have an O-line. And then they go ahead and they draft Jeanty. And that was a big surprise to me. And I was like, there's no O-line to help him get through those holes. And
we still don't have an O-line.
And so, sometimes the Raiders will do things in the draft that I'm just like, I had no idea they're going to go that route. Let's get to the final.
The other thing real quick about that is, as much as, that'll be questioned and was that the right decision? Should they have done that? There's nothing wrong with getting a lot of good, solid talent on your team.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing that the Raiders don't have is top end talent. Now they have a top end. They have a blue chip edge rusher. They have a blue chip tight end. And I believe they have a blue chip running back. Now they've got to put it all together.
Yeah. It's like when they went for Brock Bowers in the draft. They went for the best player. He was the best player in the draft. But during that draft, I was like, they got to get a quarterback.
Got to get a quarterback.
And they go and get Brock Bowers. And I'm like, who's going to throw to him? All right. Let's get to Idris Matthews. Q Linc, how likely do you think Jeanty will reach 1,000 yards rushing and 11 total touchdowns? This is a tough question, but do you think he gets 10?
He's at 10 touchdowns right now, right? By receiving and rushing. I think 1,000 yards is definitely attainable. He's at 820 yards rushing, 828 yards on the season. So, yeah, I could see him going for the next two games and getting over 1,000 yards. 1,000 yards used to be that mark. Remember, Link?
Yeah, I know.
1,000-yard season, man. You put in a hell of a season. Now it's like, it's 1,000 yards.
Average 80 yards a game or something like that, and you can get it. Okay, no doubt. I think he will. I think for the next two opponents, I'm hoping that the Giants and the Chiefs just give up. But again, I'm going on record of saying I don't know how much I want them to give up, because I don't know if I want the Raiders to win another game.
Right.
Yeah, I think we all have mixed emotions with that, but I think we all want the number one pick. So there's that. Raider Nation, thanks so much for rocking out with us on this Tuesday morning. Linc was hella festive today. We don't know how he's going to be later on in the week because Christmas is coming up, but we'll be back again later this week. And so we do appreciate you rocking out with us this morning. We hope you enjoyed the game on Sunday. And on the next episode, we'll be breaking down the fight for the number one overall draft pick.
Dun, 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 dun.
We'll see how it all goes down. So make sure to tune in on the next episode. Thanks so much for hanging out with us this morning.